After a month, mostly without primaries, the midterm calendar is heating back up. 15 states will hold their primaries in August, including 5 on August 2nd. The biggest and most unsavory primary is the GOP race in Missouri. Let's go inside the forecast. The top GOP contenders in the race to replace retiring Senator Roy Blunt are State Attorney General Eric Schmitt, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, and former Governor Eric Greitens. Yes, that Eric Greitens. For now, I have the race rated as likely Republican. But Republican leaders in Washington have been warning for months that if Greitens wins the nomination, it could cost the GOP a precious seat in the 50-50 Senate. And yet, until recently, there's been very little sign of an organized effort to stop Greitens. Why is that? Well, it's sort of a prisoner's dilemma. Until the final week, all 3 candidates were roughly tied for the lead. But GOP leaders wouldn't commit to one non-Greitens candidate. That's even though the scandal-plagued Greitens has been generating all sorts of bad headlines, even since launching this campaign. Not even former President Donald Trump has weighed in on the race, except to say that he wouldn't endorse Hartzler. Hartzler's campaign is trying to tie Greitens and Schmitt together.
Eric and Eric both are too weak on China.
Schmitt's allies are hitting Hartzler, highlighting Trump's anti-endorsement, trying to become the top non-Greitens candidate. One thing is for sure, the GOP can't afford to risk a seat in an otherwise safe state. And while he's faded in some of the latest polls, Greitens is still within striking distance. Democrats have their own primary in Missouri, and it's a crowded field. Trudy Busch Valentine, heir to the Anheuser-Busch beer fortune with her own complicated past, has loaned her campaign $4 million of her own money. But she was a relatively late entrant into the race, and Marine veteran Lucas Kunce has actually outraised her. Unlike Missouri, Trump has weighed in on the Republican primaries in Arizona, backing Peter Thiel associate Blake Masters to face Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, and former TV news anchor Kari Lake to succeed term-limited Governor Doug Ducey. Masters surged to the lead after Trump's endorsement, and a Masters-Kelly race would start as a toss-up. Lake, meanwhile, has struggled to put away her top competitor, Karen Taylor Robeson, in what has become a proxy battle between Trump and the Republican establishment. Despite, or maybe because of, Trump's endorsement of Lake, most Republicans consider Taylor Robeson to be the stronger general election candidate against the likely Democratic nominee, Katie Hobbs. I'm currently calling the race a toss-up, but that could change if Lake wins the GOP nod. There's also a number of critical House primaries worth watching. 3 Republican incumbents who voted to impeach then-President Trump after the January 6th riot at the Capitol: Peter Meijer of Michigan, Jamie Herrera Butler, and Dan Newhouse of Washington State. Meijer's seat is the most competitive in a general election, and I currently have it rated as a toss-up. But a Meijer defeat would mean Democrats would be favored to pick up the seat, which is why House Dem's campaign arm is trying to boost his challenger by meddling in the primary. There's also the member versus member Democratic primary in Michigan between Haley Stevens and Andy Levin that's drawn almost $10 million in outside spending. Stevens has close ties to House leadership and has also benefited from more than $3 million in spending by AIPAC, the pro-Israel organization. Levin, meanwhile, is more liberal and has been endorsed by prominent figures on the left, like Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. The Metro Detroit seat is likely Democratic, which means whoever wins the primary will likely be headed back to Congress, while the loser won't. Here's a list of other competitive House primaries I'm keeping my eye on. Got all of that? Good. Because there's no rest for the weary. After all these primaries on August 2nd, we get a whole 48 hours to recover before the next state votes, Tennessee, on August 4th. Until next time, and it might be sooner than you think, I'm Steve Shepard.